and I want to talk about something I'm very passionate about is I want the news again. Because I grew up in Washington, D.C., and it's not that it was always accurate then, but I met reporters that took great pride in accurately describing what's occurring, even if they disagreed with the bias of it. I looked in the eye of reporters that said, I didn't want to learn this when I did this investigation, but it was the opposite of what I was hoping.
Right.
And I heard that firsthand.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, my experience is that's dead, and I'm worried people won't even know they're not getting news anymore. I want people to become aware. If you agree with everything you're getting, you're probably just getting propaganda.
Right.
It's for you, but it's propaganda. It's not news.
And of course, you and I go back to the era of Walter Cronkite,
Yeah.
Chet Huntley, David Brinkley.
Right. Watergate.
Yeah.
My mom took me to the Watergate hearings.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, the real ones. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Woodward and Bernstein is probably a great example of really solid journalism. And that's not making a political statement whether or not I like Richard Nixon or not. Is that that they really did some digging, to find out what they found out. But anyways, I think the thing that bothers me now is that, one of the former speakers of the House of Representatives, and if you want to figure out who I'm talking about, you can do it. I heard him state on a video recently that he said Fox News is an important part of the conservative movement. And I almost fell off my chair because I'm sitting here thinking, no news organization should be a part of a movement.
Either one. Yeah, either one. Yeah, right.
Because then you're not reporting the news. You are now an advocacy group.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not
I don't
your
mind
job.
it, but call yourself.
Right.
Call
it what it is.
The Teddy Bears of America advocacy group.
Right.
Just have integrity with it,
Exactly. And it's like I tell people, I can't remember if I did this on video or I wrote it or whatever, but I said, like when it comes to the issue of climate change, I don't care what Fox News says. I don't care what CNN says.
Right.
I don't care what MSNBC says because they're all coming at it from a standpoint of trying to promote an agenda.
Right.
And it's like, that's not what I'm interested in. I'm a scientist. That's my background. I'm interested in the facts and not how somebody interprets the facts. And then, of course, the other thing is that everybody has a bully pulpit now because of Twitter and everything else. So we used to respect credentials in a given field. Okay? Now you can self-proclaim yourself a doctor or a medical expert. And if you have a louder voice than the medical profession, people are going to listen to you and not the doctors.
Well, I want to add not only that, I'm not sure that some of the doctors haven't been bought too. Well, because I've coached enough people that are in those fields and they go, if I don't jump and say how high, my funding goes away.
Well,
and I've looked in the eyes of those people.
Right.
And they had PhDs. So they're now desperate to get their funding as well. I think part of the answer is just starting to notice how directly are you getting the information of what happened?
Right.
Are they giving you the facts so that multiple people looking at it would agree that's what occurred?
Right.
Or does it have a lot of fluff words around it?
Right.
If it has a lot of fluff words and you agree with it completely or disagree completely, you're probably not even close to news.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It's like, why is it not okay anymore to have a mixed opinion about a person or a topic?
Sure.
Like, for instance, we'll talk about, like, I'll just say generically, one of our former presidents. There are things that he did policy-wise that I really thought were good. Okay? Right. There are other things that went on that I didn't.
Right.
But it seems like in this day and age,
we can't talk.
Either you are sitting at the right hand of God the Father Almighty or you're the devil incarnate, and there is no middle of the road.
No.
And nobody can fit either one of those bills.
No.
So it's like, I think, again, if you watch a certain network to get your opinion reinforced, that doesn't actually help you learn how to objectively ascertain a given topic or a given individual.
Well, I want to tell you, I'll put a link on it. There's a young woman lawyer that's attempting to give the news. And when I listen to CNN, Al Jazeera, Fox, NBC, and PBS, her information's more useful than all the major media. Okay? And she says, I'm working to give unbiased. And she's a trained attorney, so it's natural to be that way. And I think what's going to happen is these individuals are going to kick the butt of the major media because they've lost the game.
Right.
They're so now locked into their fan of, you better speak my, only talk about green bananas, not yellow bananas.
Right.
Or I'll hate you and stop supporting you.
Exactly.
I don't know how they'd get out of it if they hired me to do it.
Yeah.
So I actually now have more faith in some of the micro people committed to accurate representation of what happened.
Right.
And I'll put her link on there. Maybe I'll get to interview her sometime. But I just watched and went, my gosh, this is closer to news than anything I can get on the channels. That's why I'm excited you're independent now, because you can do your best to do that.
Yes, and I do want to state this, and nobody's paying me to say this or whatever, is that in all the years I was with WRAL, there was never one time that they came to me and said, you can't say that,
right,
or we're, or you can never say that again. Okay.
Yeah.
Now there were a couple of times, and I don't think they would mind me sharing this, is that they thought maybe I was a little bit too honest about forecasts that didn't go right, and that's just me. That's just the way I am. But there was never any interference there, but I know for a fact that there are TV stations and networks where that does go on, and it's really, really unfortunate because there's inherent bias then in the product they're offering.
Well, what I believe is happening is that's diminishing. And I think I want to give fair to them, too. They seem to do their best. But I can smell something in the background. Not you, it's mine.
Right.
I'm going, because I'm with the ham radio and the scanner people I listen to and the next door. I go, you're not matching what's happening here.
Right.
And when they do that, they're just trashing their credibility.
Right.
So that's why I personally, I think I really have hope for some young people stepping forward with a commitment of, what's just the facts?
Right.
What occurred? And then you could pause and say, now I want to give you my opinion.
Right.
1,000% higher respect than most of what we're getting now. 1,000%.
Yeah. And like when it comes to the weather, for instance, if everything is hyped, then how does the public know the difference between what's really serious and what isn't?
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Well, they tune it out. We get so numb, we tune out.
Yeah, desensitize it.
And then we that's really dangerous.
Yeah. And if you think about it, how many days out of the year, maybe 10 out of 365, where the weather really does something that is way off the norm or off the median, okay? And people, I think, need to find a source of information where they can differentiate those 10 from the other 355.
I want to break down your perception on what accurately reporting is, just your definition.
Well, I mean,
because we all have biases, and to me, I call it like our shadow side. We all have them.
Right.
Don't act like you don't.
Right.
Know you have it, and then how do you manage it? It's a little easier with weather, but still, how do you manage it? Maybe to give someone who wants to, if you want to report what's going on in your neighborhood, obviously be safe and call the police if it's an emergency. Right. Don't get out there. But report what's occurring, as citizen reporting. What is the filter you use? How do you kind of watch your own biases?
I used to give a talk, and the title of the talk was "The Scientific Method is Not Just for Scientists."
Excellent.
I think it's a great way for everybody to live their life and so forth. But basically, the scientific method has three components. You start off with a hypothesis, which is what you think the truth is. Then you do research. And the goal of the research is to do everything you can to disprove your hypothesis. You don't just look for information to support it, you look for information to discredit it. And only upon failing to do that do you accept your hypothesis as your conclusion. And so I think, in this day and age, a lot of people are cherry picking information that's going to support their hypothesis because they're a little bit scared to find out that it might not be accurate.
Yes, and they've now built their identity around their beliefs and values and all this.
Right.
So they don't have a them to step out of.
Right.
Beyond that. Then they're a real bind. If I'm going to save the crickets, and my whole life save the crickets. Well, now I got a problem because there's no me without what if the crickets don't need saving?
Right.
What if there's an overpopulation? We have to reduce. Now I'm trapped.
Right.
And that's what I see a lot of happening.
Yeah.
Is some sort of identity crisis. Instead of I don't want to be your faith, be something
Right.
that allows you to have different views. We're unconsciously locking into these identities. Then we're in big trouble.
Yep.
Because changing our mind feels like our annihilation of self.
And you know what? I don't know what made me think of this just now, but let's take the two primary political parties.
Right.
If the Democrats spent as much time trying to find dirt on their own people as they did the Republicans, and if the Republicans spent as much time trying to find dirt on their own people as they did the Democrats, the world may actually be a lot cleaner place.
Yeah, right.
You know, but
Right.
when the other side is always the enemy and always the people that are doing wrong, and my side can do no wrong, then I don't know how you get out of that without trouble.
No, you get people to resign and not vote is what you get. You get zealots and people to give up. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have a great crisis in.
Yeah.
I love, just to finish on the scientific process. Sure. In fact, I do want to announce he has a professional talk available for hire on that topic if they want it as well. So you can check that out. And I'll put the links of Greg's Patreon for anyone in the Triangle area as well as YouTube. But I grew up, honestly, I wanted to be a physicist. And my reason to be wanting to be a physicist is I wanted to understand the fabric of reality.
Okay.
Of course, after I took calculus 3 times in college, I decided a different career path. I didn't know my dyslexia and stuff had some origins with that. But my passion for that, what is really so? What happened? And then work to separate out my interpretation of it. Mm-hmm. And really getting a rush when you find you're wrong. It's like learn to feel good when you find you're wrong.
Yes.
Because that's the moment you're growing.
Yes.
If you aren't hitting those walls, you're just dying. You're just in a rut. And, they say a rut is a coffin with the ends kicked out of it. But I mean, and it doesn't mean I always feel good of being embarrassed when I'm wrong with something's important to note in business. But that's a passion I really work to keep bringing forward. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is that's the scientific process. Here's what I think.
Right.
And one of my greatest joys in small towns is I grew up in Washington, D.C. So I had not the most wonderful stereotype of small towns, the arrogance of a large city.
Right.
And my greatest thing is how that all these years keeps being broken down of the wonderful people there, mm-hmm. the gifts I meet. I was in one town and there's a poem that used to be read at the end of the television when they were going off about pilots. Every pilot in my age group or older knew of it. This guy is in Wilson, and he's the global expert on that poem. Mm-hmm. And meeting these people. And that's why I love what I do in small towns, because I'm always like, wow, you're here.
Yeah.
But if you don't know you have bias and you don't work to challenge them, then you get locked into an identity of the problem.
Yes.
And that's a hard. I wouldn't want to give that sentence to my worst enemies. No. But most have embraced it, and that's all they've become.
Exactly. And there, and I know you didn't know I was going to bring this up, but a lot of people, there are a lot of people in this world that have very strong faiths. Okay. Uh-huh. And I think in a lot of cases they're either scared of science or they see science as being the enemy of maybe their faith for any one of a number of reasons. Right. And it's like I have always looked at science as being the discovery of creation. That what better way to glorify your creator than to continually learn about the complexities of how this whole thing was set up and then teach other people about those complexities. Uh-huh. And so I always tell people it's like we did a documentary on climate change several years ago, and I closed with these comments. I said, if you're a person of faith, embrace science. It's a gift. And if you're a scientist, you don't have to believe in God, but if you respected those who did, they might be more willing to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, that's it. That's like, we're going to end on that note. Thanks so much. I really want to talk about this, and I am now a big advocate of the micro news generators, and like the weather, the news, because that's where I have the hope.
Right.
I don't know how to solve the media problem. I
don't.
There's too much money, too much pressure. They're winning too much of polarization. What I have hope for is individuals committed to the accurate information.
Yeah, and let's start celebrating our commonalities again instead of our
course.
differences.
Yeah, that's where we learn or grow. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks, Greg. Check out his Patreon. I'll put the links below and other information. Thanks for being on the show.
Always fun.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Take care.